For nearly 8 years, a single foot in a Reebok sneaker was the only evidence investigators had. No body, no witnesses, no identity. Traditional DNA testing led nowhere. Fingerprints were impossible. The national database returned nothing. But in 2024, students at a college genetic genealogy center accomplished what forensic technology could not. They built a family tree from bone DNA and traced it back through generations of relatives. In just days, they identified a woman who had been missing since 2014. This is the story of how Maria Quinones Garcia went from being Warren County Foot Jane Doe to a name, a family, and an answer that genetic genealogy alone could provide. On this channel, the focus is on cases where science, specifically DNA and genetic genealogy, does what time could not: restore identity and uncover the truth. On May 17, 2014, Maria Quinones Garcia left her residence on foot from the 300 block of Chew Street in Allentown, Pennsylvania. She was 54 years old, of Puerto Rican descent, and wore a gray shirt with what witnesses believed were white capri pants. Maria was known to leave home for extended periods. She had previously been located in New York City shelters. But this time, she did not return. 3 years passed. On May 21, 2017, a resident of Pohatcong Township, New Jersey, made a disturbing discovery while near the Delaware River. Floating in the water was a single human foot, still enclosed in a sock and a Reebok sneaker. No other remains were found. No clothing. No identification. No body. The New Jersey State Police initiated an investigation immediately, but the evidence was extraordinarily limited. Investigators had biological material, a foot, but no context for how it arrived in the Delaware River, no timeline for when the person had died, and no idea who this person was. Traditional fingerprint analysis was not possible. The foot was sent for DNA testing, and a profile was successfully extracted and entered into CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system, which contains DNA profiles from convicted offenders, arrestees, and unidentified remains. The CODIS search returned no matches. Everything discussed here is drawn from law enforcement releases, court records, and confirmed genetic genealogy findings. For years, the case remained in limbo. The Jane Doe designation, Warren County Foot Jane Doe, became the placeholder for a person whose identity was unknown. Investigators had DNA, but DNA alone is only useful if there is a comparison sample in the system. Without a match in CODIS, without additional remains, and without a missing person report that aligned with the evidence, the case stalled. What investigators did not yet understand was that the answer lay not in a criminal database, but in the genetic relationships between distant family members who had voluntarily uploaded their DNA to public genealogy platforms. Between 2017 and 2023, the Warren County Foot Jane Doe case exemplified the limitations of traditional forensic DNA technology. Investigators had done everything correctly. They had extracted a usable DNA profile, entered it into the appropriate databases, and searched for matches. The problem was not procedural. The problem was structural. CODIS, for all its successes in linking crime scene DNA to known offenders, only works when the person's DNA is already in the system. If the victim has no criminal record, has never been arrested in a jurisdiction that collects DNA, and has no prior interaction with the database, CODIS returns nothing. For unidentified remains, this means the person must have a living relative who is also in CODIS, a scenario that is statistically rare unless the family has a history of criminal justice involvement. The New Jersey State Police Cold Case Unit did not give up. Investigators periodically reviewed the case, hoping that new technology or new leads might emerge. They examined missing person reports. They considered geographic factors. At some point, a critical insight surfaced. The Lehigh River, which flows through Allentown, Pennsylvania, eventually feeds into the Delaware River near the area where the foot was discovered in Pohatcong Township. This geographic connection suggested that the person might have originated from the Allentown area, but without a confirmed identity, it remained only a theory. The real challenge was time. As years passed, the likelihood of solving the case through traditional means diminished. Witnesses forget details. Physical evidence degrades. Families who filed missing person reports sometimes lose hope or stop actively searching. The case needed something beyond conventional investigation. It needed a technological evolution that could turn genetic data into genealogical information. That evolution was already underway. By the early 2020s, investigative genetic genealogy had proven its effectiveness in cold cases across the country. The methodology involved taking crime scene DNA or unidentified remains DNA, converting it into a format compatible with public genealogy databases, and then using genetic matches to distant relatives to build family trees. Unlike CODIS, which requires a direct match, genetic genealogy works with partial matches, second cousins, third cousins, even more distant relatives, and uses traditional genealogical research to narrow down candidates. In 2023, the New Jersey State Police made a decision that would ultimately solve the case. They referred the Warren County Foot Jane Doe investigation to the Ramapo College Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center. The Ramapo College Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center operates at the intersection of forensic science and historical research. Unlike traditional DNA labs that focus on direct matches, the IGG Center specializes in using genetic relationships to identify unknown individuals. The process is methodical, time-intensive, and requires a deep understanding of both genetics and genealogy. When the Warren County Foot Jane Doe case arrived at Ramapo College in 2023, the center's team, led by Director Karen Binder, began the genetic genealogy process. The first step was to work with a genotype profile created from the DNA, extracted from the foot bone. This profile is different from a standard forensic DNA profile used in CODIS. Forensic profiles examine specific short tandem repeat markers that are useful for identification but do not provide genealogical information. Genetic genealogy, by contrast, uses single nucleotide polymorphisms, hundreds of thousands of markers across the genome that reveal ancestry and familial relationships. The genotype profile was analyzed by students working under Binder's direction. These students are trained in genetic genealogy techniques and work on real cold cases as part of their education. Their role is not speculative. They follow a structured methodology that has been validated in hundreds of cases nationwide. The next phase involved comparing the profile to individuals in public genealogy databases. It is critical to understand that these databases are opt-in. People voluntarily upload their DNA test results from companies like Ancestry DNA or 23andMe to third-party platforms such as GED Match or Family Tree DNA, specifically to find relatives or explore their ancestry. Law enforcement does not have access to the proprietary databases of commercial testing companies unless those companies receive legal process. Instead, investigators use only the public platforms, where users have consented to share their information. When the Warren County Foot Jane Doe profile was compared to these databases, the system returned genetic matches, people who shared segments of DNA with the unidentified person. These matches were distant relatives, likely second cousins, third cousins, or more remote connections. The amount of shared DNA is measured in centimorgans, a unit that reflects the probability of genetic inheritance. While the specific centimorgan values for this case have not been publicly released, typical investigative genetic genealogy cases involve matches ranging from 20 to 200 centimorgans, representing relationships several generations removed. This is where traditional genealogy becomes essential. The Ramapo College students began building family trees for each genetic match. They used publicly available records, census data, birth certificates, marriage records, obituaries, and other historical documents to trace these relatives backward in time, identifying common ancestors. If two matches are third cousins, for example, they share a set of great-great-grandparents. By identifying those ancestors and then tracing all of their descendants forward, the students could theoretically identify every living person who might match the DNA profile. This process is called reverse genealogy, and it is both labor-intensive and precise. The students must account for marriages, name changes, geographic migrations, and incomplete records. They must eliminate candidates who are the wrong age, the wrong sex, or who are confirmed to be alive. The goal is to narrow the pool of potential identities down to a manageable number, ideally just a few individuals who fit the profile. In the Warren County Foot Jane Doe case, the breakthrough came quickly. According to publicly available reports, a critical lead emerged from a first cousin once removed, a relatively close genetic relationship that provided a strong starting point for tree building. Within just a few days of genealogical research, the students identified Maria Quinones Garcia as a candidate. Maria fit the profile in multiple ways. She had been reported missing from Allentown, Pennsylvania in May 2014, just 3 years before the foot was discovered in the Delaware River. Her age, 54, was consistent with the biological indicators from the remains. Her geographic location aligned with the theory that the Lehigh River could have carried remains into the Delaware. And critically, her family history matched the genetic data obtained from the foot. But genetic genealogy does not provide legal confirmation. It generates investigative leads. The final step required direct DNA comparison. Once Maria Quinones Garcia was identified as the most likely candidate, investigators contacted the Allentown Police Department, which had handled her missing person case. Collaboration between the New Jersey State Police Cold Case Unit and Allentown Police was essential to move forward. The next step was to obtain reference DNA samples from Maria's biological children. These samples would allow forensic scientists to perform a direct kinship analysis, comparing the DNA from the foot to the DNA of her known offspring. This type of analysis is definitive. It confirms or excludes a biological relationship with statistical certainty. The reference samples were collected and analyzed. The results confirmed what the genetic genealogy research had indicated. The foot recovered from the Delaware River in 2017 belonged to Maria Quinones Garcia. On March 25, 2025, the New Jersey State Police and the Allentown Police Department made a public announcement. Warren County Foot Jane Doe now had a name. Maria Quinones Garcia, who had been missing since May 17, 2014, was officially identified. She was 54 years old at the time of her disappearance, a woman of Puerto Rican descent who had lived on Chew Street in Allentown and was known to leave home for extended periods. The identification brought closure to one aspect of the case, the question of identity, but it also opened new questions. How did Maria die? What circumstances led to her death? Why was only a single foot recovered? Law enforcement has not publicly released information about the cause of death. The absence of additional remains makes forensic determination difficult. Investigators continue to examine the circumstances surrounding Maria's disappearance and death, but as of March 2025, those details remain undetermined. What is clear is that without genetic genealogy, Maria Quinones Garcia would likely have remained unidentified indefinitely. Traditional investigation had exhausted its options. CODIS had failed to produce a match. The case would have remained cold, a Jane Doe designation in a file drawer, a family without answers. The identification of Maria Quinones Garcia represents both a resolution and a continuation. For her family, it provides the answer to a question that had remained open for more than a decade. For investigators, it demonstrates the effectiveness of genetic genealogy as a tool for resolving cases that were previously unsolvable. Investigative genetic genealogy has fundamentally changed cold casework. Since its use in the Golden State Killer case in 2018, the methodology has been applied to hundreds of investigations across the United States. The technique is particularly valuable in cases involving unidentified remains, where traditional forensic methods have limited utility. It has identified victims of decades-old homicides, resolved missing person cases, and brought accountability in cases where perpetrators believed they had escaped detection. The ethical questions surrounding genetic genealogy remain subjects of ongoing debate. Advocates argue that the use of public opt-in databases respects privacy because users have voluntarily chosen to share their information. They point to the fact that law enforcement is not accessing proprietary commercial databases without consent, and that the technique has solved cases that would otherwise remain unsolved forever. Critics raise concerns about the implications of familial searching, the idea that a person's decision to upload their DNA can lead to the identification of a relative who never consented. They question whether users fully understand that their genetic information might be used in criminal investigations when they agree to terms of service on genealogy platforms. They also highlight the need for clear policies governing how law enforcement accesses and uses genetic data. As of 2025, there is no comprehensive federal legislation governing investigative genetic genealogy. Some states have enacted guidelines or restrictions. Professional organizations have developed best practices, but the legal landscape remains fragmented, and the technology continues to evolve faster than policy. What is undeniable is that genetic genealogy works. It has brought answers to families who had none. It has identified victims who would otherwise remain nameless. And in cases like Maria Quinones Garcia, it has turned a single piece of evidence, a foot in a sneaker, into a name, a history, and a pathway toward understanding what happened. The story of Maria Quinones Garcia is a story about the limits of traditional forensic science and the potential of new technologies to overcome those limits. For nearly 8 years, investigators had DNA but no identity. They had evidence but no answers. What changed was not the quality of the investigation. It was the availability of a tool that could transform genetic data into genealogical information and genealogical information into a name. Genetic genealogy does not replace traditional police work. It complements it. It provides leads that investigators can follow, candidates they can confirm, and answers they can deliver to families who have waited years for resolution. The identification of Maria Quinones Garcia was the result of collaboration between the New Jersey State Police, the Allentown Police Department, and students at Ramapo College, who spent days building family trees from genetic matches. It was the result of public genealogy databases, populated by people seeking to understand their own heritage. And it was the result of DNA extracted from a single foot, preserved carefully enough to yield a profile that could be analyzed years later. As more cases are solved through genetic genealogy, as more families receive answers, and as more cold cases move from unsolved to resolved, the question becomes not whether this technology should be used, but how it should be governed. Should public DNA databases continue to be accessible for law enforcement investigations? What protections should exist for individuals whose relatives upload their genetic information? And what responsibility do we have to use these tools, not only effectively but ethically? Maria Quinones Garcia has a name again. The investigation into her death continues, and the methodology that identified her will undoubtedly identify others, bringing resolution to cases that once seemed unsolvable. Many viewers here follow these cases quietly. If this story mattered to you, you're not alone.